Finally, you found the perfect property and you want to buy it. You negotiate for a good price and all the favorable terms, and you're ready to hand over your hard-earned cash to the one selling that property. But then a nagging question hits at you. What if something goes wrong? What if the seller takes your money and disappears? What if the property documents are not legitimate? Or what if maybe there's a dispute on the land that you're trying to buy? So many questions will flash through your mind at that point. And on the other hand, if you're the seller, you may be thinking, what if I hand over my original documents and the buyer's check bounces? What if maybe there's a delay in the final payment after I've taken the property off the market? As a buyer, you can decide to ignore all these questions that may come up in your mind and take the risk to make payment for the property and hope that everything goes well. Or you can take a step back and put the right structure in place to ensure that everything actually goes right and you're protected whether the deal goes through or falls apart. I'm Desmond Kafui and you're welcome back to another episode of Ghana Ground Up. Now today we're tackling a topic that sounds a bit technical, a bit legal, but then trust me, it's one of the most important concepts you need to understand to protect yourself when buying property. We're talking about escrow. Now, don't let the word escrow scare you, because by the end of this episode, you'll be able to understand what escrow is, how it can be one of the best decisions you can make in a real estate deal, and also why it's a very powerful protection against some of the common headaches that plague the market today. I mean, it's not just applicable to Ghana, it's applicable everywhere else. Now, you may be thinking, escrow, that sounds like some foreign concept that doesn't apply here in Ghana, and it even sounds like a very wild legal term. But here's the thing, understanding it could be the difference between a smooth property transaction and losing your money. Now, basically, an escrow is a neutral holding arrangement where a trusted third party temporarily holds money, documents, or other assets until a specific set of conditions are met in a transaction between two parties or two or more parties. Think of it like this. You, the buyer, and the seller agree to use a neutral, trusted person who will hold on to the money for the property you want to buy. And let's call this person, let's say, an escrow agent. Now, normally, an escrow agent could be a lawyer, it could be a bank, or it could be a licensed escrow company. So you, the buyer, gives the money to the escrow agent instead of giving it directly to the one who is selling the property. And that could be a developer or homeowner or whoever it is that is selling the property. Now, the seller in turn gives the documents of the property to the same escrow agent. Now, those documents could be maybe the signed sales and purchase agreement, it could be the site plan, it could be the indenture, or whatever documents that apply to the transaction that you're going into. Now, the escrow agent will hold both the money and also the documents from both parties securely. And he will only release the money to the seller once all the conditions that have been outlined or agreed between the buyer and the seller have been met. And he will have a checklist of the terms and conditions. And once everything checks out, the seller will get his money. And the agent will also release the documents to the buyer once the seller has received full payment. And this will happen simultaneously. Now, it's a simple but brilliant way to make sure everyone plays by the rules. It's like having a respected elder in the room to make sure that the deal is fair and transparent for everyone involved. So the escrow agent doesn't take sides. He doesn't side with the buyer or the seller. He's a neutral third party. He simply follows the predetermined instructions that both parties have agreed to, so everyone walks away happy. So basically, that's an escrow. So how does this actually work in a typical Ghanaian property deal? Let's break it down step by step. Now, the first step is the purchase agreement, where the buyer and the seller will negotiate the price and terms. And this is where you bring in your respective lawyers to help guide you through the processes. They will draft a sale and purchase agreement, which will clearly state the conditions for the sale, and it will also name the third party who will act as the escrow agent. The second step is opening an escrow. Now, once the sale and purchase agreement is signed, the escrow is officially open. So the buyer will then transfer the agreed deposit into a special bank account managed by the escrow agent. And this is not supposed to be the personal bank account of the escrow agent. It has to be a dedicated client account, which gives you the extra layer of security. And if you have a situation where the escrow agent gives you a personal account number for that transaction, well, that should be a red flag to you. The next step is doing the due diligence. Now, if you happen to have a lawyer as the escrow agent, he will take care of this for you, or maybe the buyer's lawyer can take care of this. Now, the lawyer will go to the Lands Commission to conduct a search and verify that the seller is the true owner of the property and the land that you're dealing with is free from any disputes or liens. And this is where you uncover any potential red flags, like properties being sold to multiple people, which can be a major issue because, I mean, in Ghana, it happens quite a lot. After that, we get to the closing. And once the lawyer is satisfied with his property searches and the documentations and everything adds up, then he can give the green light so that the buyer can pay the remaining balance of the purchase price into the escrow account. And the final step is the payout and the handover. Now, this is where, everybody can relax because this is the moment everybody has been waiting for. Now, the escrow agent will now release the total funds to the seller and simultaneously hand over the signed transfer documents to the buyer. And that's it. The deal is done safely and securely. Now, let me tell you why this matters in Ghana's property market. We've all heard the horror stories, haven't we? We've all heard about, the buyer who paid in full, only to discover that the seller didn't actually own the property. We may have also heard about maybe some family who have lost their savings to someone selling one plot of land to maybe 3 or 4 different people. These stories are exactly why escrow exists. It's not about just trusting people. It's about creating a system where trust is not necessary because everything is verified independently. Because as we know it, people break trusts all the time. And if the hurdle is taken away, we can expect a smooth flow of transactions. So it's not about, oh, trust me to do this. No, everything is laid out in a structure and we can take trust out so that we can follow the laid down rules and procedures to get to the designated destination or outcome that we're looking for. Now, let's look at some good reasons why you need an escrow. Now, an escrow protects you from fraud. We all know that not every player in the real estate space is legitimate. And as a result, we've even had some earlier discussions about real estate fraud and how to avoid them. And you can check out the earlier episodes. We'll put the link up in the top right hand corner so you can just click on it and then watch those episodes. So with escrow protecting you from fraud, you'd see that the nightmare situation where you end up paying for a property only to find out that the seller wasn't even the owner of the property is eliminated. So the money doesn't go to the seller until the ownership is verified and everything else checks out. Escrows also ensure a fair exchange. The seller is also protected in this case. Now, they don't have to worry about a buyer defaulting on payment after they've already handed over their valuable documents. So everything is more of constrained by a checklist. If you meet your conditions and if the other party meets their conditions, then you can exchange your documents and then you can also get your money. Now, an escrow also creates a clear paper trail in the sense that every step of the process is documented. And this is very, very important if any disputes arise later on in the process of the transaction. Now, you might be wondering, who can provide escrow services in Ghana? Well, several of our major banks offer these services. I mean, just walk into any of the banks and then ask them for some escrow service or an escrow account, and I believe they can fix something up for you. And there are also specialized legal firms that can handle escrow arrangements, particularly for real estate transactions. Now, escrow arrangements are not purely for real estate transactions alone. They are applicable for different forms of transactions. Once there are let's say there's money to be exchanged, and also there are some properties. It could be intellectual properties, it could be some other form of transaction. It's not limited to real estate alone. The key here is choosing someone with a solid reputation and proper regulatory oversight. And here's something else that is very crucial to understand. Escrow isn't just about holding money and documents. You'd realize that a good escrow agent will also coordinate with other professionals. They'll work with, let's say, surveyors to confirm the boundaries of the land you're dealing with. They'll work with lawyers to verify the legal documentations. And they'll work with the Lands Commission to ensure that the property you're dealing with has proper titles or the title is perfected. And they also work with you to make sure that everything is well taken care of. And of course, you are also well taken care of. If you've noticed, Escrow doesn't just protect the buyers, it also protects the sellers. Think about it from the seller's perspective. They're handing over ownership of their valuable property. And then, how do they know that the buyer won't back out of the deal at the last minute after they've already signed everything? Escrow makes sure that everybody gets treated fairly and the exchange of documents and money happens simultaneously so that nobody gets left behind or nobody gets left hanging. But here is what is really exciting about escrow. Now, it's not just for people buying high-end properties, it's for everyone who wants the protection that escrow offers. If you're buying, let's say, a land, or you're buying a house, or you're even renting a house, an escrow can protect you. And the principle applies everywhere, regardless of the size of the transaction that you're involved in. Now, let's talk about the costs, because I know that's on the mind of a lot of people. Now, escrow fees in Ghana typically will range from about 0.5% to about 1.5% of the transaction value. And yes, that's an additional cost to whatever you may be paying. Maybe you're paying agents and all that. But then consider what you're getting. You're getting professional verification of your documents. You're getting coordination of the transaction elements. You're getting a secure place where your funds will be held. And of course, protection against fraud. So when you're making what's likely the largest financial transaction of your life, that is buying a house, that cost will soon seem pretty reasonable. And I believe you would reason with me that that should be the case. Here's a pro tip. When setting up an escrow arrangement, be very specific about the conditions that need to be met. Don't just say, oh, when all the documents are ready, we'll exchange the funds and everything. No, you don't make assumptions when it comes to an escrow. You need to specify exactly which documents, from which authorities, and in what condition. The more specific you are upfront, the smoother the process will be. And time is also very important. So don't wait until the very last minute to set up the escrow. And you'll see that these arrangements need time to be properly structured. So you want to start the conversation very early in your property transaction process. You want to start setting up the escrow and finding out all you need to do about the escrow very early once you have interest in a property. One thing I want to address is the misconception that escrow slows down transactions. Yes, I mean, it adds steps to the process, but then it actually prevents the delays that may come up from problems discovered at the last minute. It's better to take a few extra weeks for proper verification than to spend months trying to resolve issues that come up with time. Looking ahead, I believe escrow will become increasingly important in Ghana's developing real estate market. And as property values continue to rise and transactions become more complex, the protection that escrow provides become even more valuable. So here's my challenge to you. If you're considering a property transaction, don't just think about escrow as an optional thing that you can do on the side. Think of it as professional insurance for what's likely going to be your biggest investment that you're going to make. Ask your lawyer or your real estate agent about incorporating escrow into your next transaction or your current transactions. And remember, in real estate, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And escrow, well, it's your prevention strategy wrapped up in professional expertise. That wraps it up for this episode of Ghana Ground Up. If this information was helpful, do well to share it with someone who is thinking about buying a property or even selling a property. And if you have questions about escrow or maybe any other real estate topic, send them our way. You can leave a comment and definitely we'll respond. Let's get interactive. Let's get busy in the comments. All in all, invest wisely and of course, protect your investments even more wisely. I'm Desmond Kafui and this is Ghana Ground Up. I'll catch you in the next episode.